Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today we are finally back with my mini series called The Best Of. If you weren't following my channel, last year I created this little mini series to basically talk about my brand favorites. If you're familiar with my channel over the past couple of months or a few years, I basically love talking about a lot of my favorites when it comes to polishes, whether it's colors or finishes, but I had never done a video on like my brand favorites, and I feel like doing it around this time of year is just so helpful because Black Friday is right around the corner. Mooncat specifically does their Lunar Sale, and to be honest, at the time of this recording, I don't know the details of the sale this year, so make sure to look at the description box or just follow Mooncat on their social media pages directly so you are up to date. So I don't think I need to make a disclaimer since I am going to be talking about my favorites specifically, but you know, when it comes to nail polishes, there are a lot of different experiences and opinions out there, even regarding the same polish. So just keep that in mind. I'm just going off of my experiences, but I do feel like this video would be a great time to talk about any issues that the brands have had or that I've experienced or that I've like read about. So it's not just going to be me gushing over specific polishes, but it is going to be a lot of that in the beginning. So as always, I will have timestamps for everything in the description box. For now, let me show you the best of Mooncat. So first, I do want to talk about some of Mooncat's nail care essentials. So think base and top coats or any kind of other like accessories. They have a decent amount, but as far as my absolute favorites go, I have two. The first one is their Speed Demon top coat, which is my holy grail top coat. It just dries down so incredibly fast and shiny for me. I know it is pricey when it comes to other quick dry top coats, but I would recommend getting this while it's on sale. Again, this is just my go-to. I feel like it just dries down so incredibly fast, although I never did like a speed testing out, you know, this to other top coats, but I just know based on my experiences, when I've been in a pinch, I would put this on, wait like literally 3 minutes, you know, blow on my nails a little bit, and they are dry. I also do really love the fan brush in this, and just as a disclaimer, any kind of quick dry top coat in general is gonna get really thick about the halfway point, so as long as you have nail polish thinner, you'll be fine. And my other holy grail from Mooncat is their nail elixir. This is their cuticle oil, and it is jojoba based, but there is also marula oil, which I think is what takes it like over the top for me. My nails are definitely on the thinner side. They're prone to peeling and bending, so I don't usually love just straight up jojoba oil. Obviously all the cuticle oils that I use are jojoba based, but I always love like a combination and when there's just other oils in the mix, and this one is so freaking good. I feel like it is just so lightweight and has this like very silky and kind of luxurious feel to it, so it really does kind of reflect the price point because again, I know that this is pricey for a cuticle oil. You can definitely get a bigger bottle of 100% pure jojoba oil for like a fraction of the cost, but it's just not enough for my nails, okay? Like this has given me solid results and I am just such a fan. So if you do want to splurge on your nail care a little bit, I would definitely recommend this. As you might know, Mooncat has a ton of different finishes on their website, and one of my favorite finishes in general, not just from them, are shimmers. So I'm gonna start with those. They literally just put out a collection called Pandora Unboxed, and that had some beautiful shimmers, kind of like multi-chromes and magnetics as well. But my top favorite from that one was Serpents of Eden, which is this beautiful green kind of duochrome, or maybe even a multi-chrome, because I feel like from this angle I can see like a little bit of purple. It is so stunning. I'm not somebody that I would consider myself as like a green lover necessarily. Like I do like a lot of greens, but I'm not a hardcore green lover like other people. And I feel like this is one of those shades that will convert you. It is just so shiny, so shifty. I'm especially a fan of how it shifts to teal. I think it is just such a beautiful kind of combination. The next three shades are from the previous Fallen collection. The first one that I have is Dark Night of the Soul, which is this really dark and moody purple base with this super glowy blue shimmer, which if you're like in the indie world, you know that purple bases with a blue shimmer are a dime a dozen, but I really feel like this one does stand out because it is more muted and dark and moody. I feel like a lot of the other ones that we see are just a lot more vibrant. This one doesn't have as much of a duochrome shift. Like, it is this brighter, almost aqua blue, and it does kind of change to like a darker, almost indigo blue, but I just love how subtle it is, and it's just, I don't know, just a dark and moody shade that I feel like I'm gonna love for the fall and going into the winter season. No surprise though, my preference is definitely more towards the lighter shades, and I did have a couple of other favorites too, but if I had to narrow it down from the Fallen collection, my top one is gonna be Witch Hazel. It's this beautifully light peachy pink kind of base color with this really intense gold to green kind of shifting shimmer. I just love this. This is like a beautiful, beautiful shade. Even just in the bottle alone, it is so pretty, where it almost reminds me of like a little potion that you just want to like have and then drink. I feel like it's just so magical and ethereal. This is definitely on the more sheer side. I didn't mention it with the previous two, but those definitely build up to be a little bit more opaque where it covers your nail line. But this one, I know it might not look like it from my swatch clip, especially because I cut my nails recently, but in my initial review video where I have my longer nails, you can see like straight up nail line with this, even with 3 coats. So if you don't like visible nail line, keep that in mind with this shade or some other lighter ones. But if you're a fan of it like me, this is a must-have. It is so freaking pretty. And the other favorite from that collection for me was After the Rain. I was just so smitten with this polish. It's like a really light purpley periwinkle kind of shade with this really beautiful and warm kind of orangey red shimmer that shifts to this yellow and gold in extreme angles. I just remember gasping when I saw the email and the swatch for this one, as I did with like, you know, the other shades, but this one just felt so special, especially with the name for some reason. I don't know, it just reminds me of spring. So I know I'm gonna be including this in my spring favorites video for next year. And the last 2 shimmers that I have are from the Seasons of Persephone collection, which was the first collection of the year. It already feels like so long ago, but my first one is Freshly Bitten. And I did share this recently in my favorite vampy shades. It is this juicy and luscious berry base color with this purple shimmer that shifts to red in extreme angles, so it's kind of a duochrome vibe going on. It is just lush. Like, there's something about this shade, the color, the name, that is like so sensual, and I just really love that for a nail polish. I think it's especially fitting for like spooky season, which at this point is over, but I don't know, I think this is still a solid shade to have. It is just so stunning with the shifts. And the last one that I have is a shimmer, and this one is To All Who Ghosted Me. This one is like a really dusty purpley gray kind of sheer base with this really intense blue shimmer. It's another one that just gives me such moody vibes, but it's still so pretty. I just love that kind of combination. I feel like it almost has this eerie vibe to it with like that ghostly gray kind of base, especially with how sheer it is. But I feel like this is going to be such a pretty polish for winter when you're just like feeling moody but still a little pretty, you know? So while I do love shimmers, and especially Mooncat shimmers, because again, they are just so beautiful, I unfortunately have to talk about a problem shimmer of theirs, and this one is so heartbreaking for me. If you're familiar with me and my channel, you know that I absolutely love this shade, and so I was just so disappointed to see what happened to it. I am talking about Curse of Calypso, which you might say like, oh, but it looks beautiful. And to that, you know, you're right. Like, it still is a really beautiful shade. It's very light, like this pastel pinky purple kind of base with this gold to green to aqua kind of shimmer. Like, I really love this polish, but I should say I loved this polish because this is what it looks like now that it's faded. Curse of Calypso came out originally last year in like the springtime. I don't remember what month exactly, but this is what it used to look like. And this is what it looks like now. It is completely different. It is totally faded. It still does give ethereal fairy wing kind of vibes, which, you know, I love, but it is a bummer to see like how it used to look compared to how it is now. Apparently it is a thing with some purple pigments that they just will fade over time. I remember when I first learned that maybe like a year or two ago, I thought that was so crazy because I've had a lot of older nail polishes and purples specifically that just never faded. So this was like my very first one, especially that wasn't a neon, because if you don't know, neons fade. So it was just so sad to see that happen because the original is definitely super beautiful. But yeah, just be warned that this is a polish that unfortunately fades. Next up, I'm going to talk about some of their holographics, and they have like a decent amount. They're mainly linear, I believe, and then a couple of glitters, and I have 2 of each. The first one I have, you may remember from my fall favorites video. This is Monster Under Your Head, which is this really dark olive green linear holo. I know this might sound crazy, but you know, if this is your first time watching me, I'm not really the biggest fan of linear holos. Like, I prefer scattered holos, and so I don't really have like this desire to have all of these colors. But this one I feel like is just so incredibly unique that it feels like a must-have. Not to mention the formula is just impeccable. But yeah, I have been loving this one for fall especially. I feel like if you're a green lover, you probably need this one in your collection. The other linear holo that I have is Bloodmoon, and you may remember me sharing this one last year. It is just this super dark and vampy kind of burgundy maroon base. It's kind of hard to tell, but I feel like there is this sort of like reddish shimmer in there. So this almost feels like they're sort of combination formulas that are linear holos with a shimmer. It's not as intense as some of their other combination finishes, like Full Scream Ahead, for example, is like that minty green linear holo with this like green shimmer. I feel like the shimmer in this is definitely secondary, but I do love that because it's just one of those shades that looks so good no matter the lighting, and the color again is just so gorgeous. I feel like I'm kind of gravitating towards a lot of these darker shades just because of the time of year, and I'm a seasonal wearer. But yeah, this one is super stunning. Then for their holographic glitters, I have 2 of them, and this first one is Serpents Tongue, which is this beautiful kind of lilac base, just packed with these holographic glitters and this green shimmer. It is just so, so pretty. I love this color combination. I love the amount of sparkle that you get in this, where it is just so full and even coverage, even on the first coat. I know the whole point of glitters is to like really pack it on and like have your nails looking so blingy, but I do love just like one coat of a glitter polish over a clear base. It is just so pretty to me, and this one just is stunning. I feel like this is also a really great alternative if you missed out on the Holo Taco shade Glamethyst from a couple of years ago. This is more or less a dupe for it, and I would say this one is even better because the green shimmer really stands out in it. And the last glitter that I have is I'm a Mother Effin' Supernova, which is just a pale gold glitter. I really love this one, especially for the holiday season, because it is just a really flattering shade of like gold, where it's not too yellow, not too warm or dark. I really love that it is on the pale side, and this is another one that looks great whether you're wearing it in one coat or in complete full coverage. But I especially love using this one for little glitter gradients, especially for the holidays. Next, I want to talk about a couple of their jelly flaky type of polishes. They are just some of my favorite finishes, and I feel like unfortunately Mooncat doesn't really do them as often. A couple of years ago they had their Kaleidoscope Haze collection, which was like this rainbow lineup of this jelly flaky finish, and I think there's only like 2 colors that are still still available. The rest have been retired, but they have introduced a couple of others that are still around. This first one I imagine will be around for a while longer, at least I hope so, but that one is Maelstrom, which is from the Songs of Sirens collection. It is this enchanting teal kind of jelly base filled with this iridescent flaky that shifts from green to teal to a brighter aqua shade. It is just so freaking stunning, like literally a mermaid's tail in a bottle. I love that there's also this like dusting of a holographic sparkle in there as well. The Songs of Sirens collection definitely was pretty, but I feel like this one just really captured the vibes so well. This next polish I have is actually from one of their collections last year. It's Triceratops from the Pretty Prehistoric collection. This one is a medium gray jelly base that's packed with this aqua to blue to indigo shifting iridescent flaky. It is just so unique, and I feel like one of Mooncat's more underrated shades. I remember the first time seeing this and swatching it, it just reminded me so much of those like boulders that are cracked open to reveal these opals inside. It is just so, so beautiful. The only caveat with this one, I think, is that it dries down to a matte finish, which I know is not everybody's cup of tea, but I feel like it looks so good once you add a glossy top coat back on top. So I would recommend this, especially if you're a gray lover or an opal lover. And the last flaky that I want to talk about is kind of a controversial one at this point. That is none other than House of Hades. This is an absolutely stunning cobalt blue in this like indigo base. It's just so unreal how much it glows on your nails. And I say that it's controversial because there have definitely been a lot of reviews of people not loving this polish. Like I've seen reviews of people that I follow saying they hated this polish because it just had such an awful, thick, goopy formula, which by the way, Mooncat does kind of disclose that this particular flaky finish can thicken up over time and then just be a little bit more difficult to work with. But you know, again, it's similar to the quick dry top coats. If you have a nail polish thinner, that's not going to be an issue, but I definitely do understand the frustration of having like a brand new bottle apply just so bad. But then I've also seen like the complete opposite side where people have said that this is such a thin polish. Like I saw a friend recently swatch it and she said she wore it in 4 or maybe 5 coats and you can still see nail line. Like it was watery thin, and that just has not been my experience whatsoever. I feel like mine was really smooth, easy to work with. It built up easily. It is also interesting to me to see people say that they just like don't see the hype around this, because I'm like, to me, the color is definitely worth the hype. But I do think, similar to Mercury's Tears a couple of years ago, they did have like a batch issue with this one or something, and so it just wasn't picking up as vibrant as it actually is. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't know if I could recommend this. Like I want to, you know, if you are a blue lover. It is really, really gorgeous, but at the same time, I do want to put out that like buyer beware kind of disclaimer, because even though it hasn't been my experience, I've definitely seen a lot of people just be disappointed by this one. Moving on to their magnetics, I generally really like Mooncat magnetics. I feel like they have a really great balance of magnetizing easily, but still being very pigmented, where you only generally need 2 coats for them to be fully opaque, because my personal preference is having more opaque magnetics. I don't really love jelly-based ones, but those do come in handy if you want velvet nails specifically. So I do have like a video coming soon on kind of different magnetic techniques and all of that, but for now you can watch my favorite magnetics video to hear me talk about like what I love and what I don't love about each brand's magnetics. Back to Mooncat though, the first one that I have is Fields of Lavender from their recent Fallen collection. This is just a really pretty mauvey purple kind of base with this red shimmer that shifts to gold gold. And this does lean on the more jelly side, which I know I was just saying I don't usually like in my magnetics, but I feel like I'm just so much more forgiving because of the color in this one. It is just so unique, at least to my collection. I love a red shimmer, and especially when it's in a purple base, but this is just a much more like muted, almost mulberry leaning color or something. It is just so pretty and so unique to my collection. Another one I absolutely love is Your Heart's a Black Hole, which was from last year, I think, released during their Lunar Sale. But this one is just this really beautiful, like velvety red that's a little bit muted, I want to say. It's not as vibrant as some other red magnetics from other brands, and I just love that about this shade. I feel like there's something about it that just makes it so perfect for like the holidays specifically. This one looks like there's a little bit of like a gold kind of shimmer going on, aside from like, you know, a hollow sparkle that you can kind of see, but it definitely has a more monochromatic red look overall, and it's just beautiful. You can't go wrong with red nails. Another favorite of mine that was from last year is Weeping Willow. This one came out in the Lost in a Folktale collection, and it's kind of this dark emerald green with this green to teal magnetic shimmer. And there is reflective glitter in here. You can probably see like the little sparkles of it in the bottle. I know not everybody is into reflective glitters, but I feel like this one isn't as like obnoxious as other ones. At least I'm very forgiving of it because I love reflective glitter. But yeah, I just think this is a beautiful, beautiful shade of green. It is like the perfect emerald green for me. So I just can't recommend it enough if you are looking for one, or if you're just a green lover in general. You know, you can't go wrong with a shade like this. I feel like this one could also work for the holiday season, especially if it is paired with Your Heart's a Black Hole. And my last magnetic recommendation is Illusionist. This one is one of their earlier shades. I don't know if it was like a previous Live Love Polish shade or just like an early Mooncat one, but it is this super dark and vampy kind of burgundy purple base with this reddish to yellow to green shifting magnetic shimmer and this holographic glitter. So it is super sparkly, super gorgeous. My only gripe with this one though is that the website photos definitely look a lot more red, and I feel like mine leans more purple. I know burgundy is kind of like that range anyway, but I don't know. It was a little bit of a bummer to see how not red my bottle was compared to what you see on the website, but it is still a beautiful polish regardless. So I just really like this one, and I feel like it's another one that's like maybe not underrated, but just, I don't know, maybe almost forgotten about because it's been a while since it came out. And I have shared it a few times on my channel, but I will always take the moment to share it again. And before moving on to the next category, I do want to talk about a problem magnetic that Mooncat has. And at first I thought this was just like a personal preference type of thing, but I feel like there is actually an issue here worth addressing. First of all, the polish I'm talking about is Quicksand's Embrace, which came out in the Songs of Sirens collection earlier this year. It's this really pretty neutral kind of blush leaning shade that has this holographic magnetic pigment. And if you're familiar in the indie space at all, you already know where this is going, but if you're not familiar, unfortunately, holographic magnetic pigments are just not stable and they will dissolve. So kind of think of it similar to thermals fading or neons fading, or even like certain purple pigments fading over time. The hollow effect in this will fade. In my initial review, I did kind of talk about how I just personally don't love these hollow magnetic finishes because I find them to be very, very subtle. Even wearing this in direct sunlight, I couldn't see the holographic effect, and I feel like it was just stronger on camera than what I could see in real life. And since it was already so subtle when I first reviewed it like months ago when it came out, it doesn't look much different in my opinion now. So I'm not saying that my bottle has like faded yet, but it's also just like incredibly hard for me to see because I know I don't have the best eyesight, but like I just don't see holographic in this at all. And like I mentioned before, I'm definitely a fan of like a subtle hollow kind of look when it's like, you know, scattered. I'm not always crazy about the in your face linear hollows, but this is like almost too subtle. So I just wanted to put that out there. You know, if you are interested in very, and I mean very with a capital V, subtle holos, this is a good option, but just be mindful that you might not always see it, and especially if it fades over time. And the last finish that I want to talk about is their thermals. And I want to start by giving this like general disclaimer when it comes to thermals, because if you don't know, thermals will die. They will stop transitioning. They'll get stuck in either the hot or cold state or even somewhere in between. Unfortunately, from like looking online, there doesn't seem to be like a solid consensus on like the timeline or just like how it stays once it's dead. So it's hard to say. Obviously, the main thing is that you want to make sure, as with all your nail polish, that you are storing it away from sunlight, away from like extreme heat or just extreme temperature changes in general. But even with proper storage, they will stop transitioning at some point. I store all of my nail polishes in helmers, so they're in the dark, away from like, you know, extreme heat and everything. We have central air, so there's nothing crazy that goes on, but I still have had thermals die on me, and it's hard to say if it's like a difference in their quality, like the pigment specifically, because there are some brands that do have like a good reputation for thermals. So, you know, it's kind of like up in the air as far as Mooncat's thermals and their quality goes. I do want to start talking about Treachery in the Blue, which came out in their Songs of Sirens collection, which again was several months ago. And I don't think mine has like faded or anything, but I feel like the base color or the color in the warm state is just a little different than what it looked like before. And it's also a lot different than what it looks like on the website, which I have also seen a lot of people sharing online, that their bottles of this color just don't match the website photos, which I will be also talking about a little bit later. But yeah, I went back to watch my initial review of this one because obviously swatching it now, I was like, okay, I mean, it still transitions and it's pretty strong in my opinion, but seeing the original color, like it does look like it's a little bit different. And I feel like I had noticed that with one of my other thermals from Cadillacquer, where I've had it for a couple of years, and it's almost like the warmer state is like blending into the colder state. So it's basically not as crisp of a distinction, if that makes sense. So this is one that like is beautiful. Like I do love how this looks, but I feel like I'm already kind of noticing a slight difference in color. So, you know, since it's already in my collection, I should be using it more often before it like completely dies. But I am curious to see like when it's gonna happen, because it only came out earlier this year. So even though my experience with this one has generally been positive, I did want to also put it out there that I've seen a lot of people just like disappointed in this shade for just not matching the website photos more than anything. Now I know I was really like talking down on thermals and everything, but there is one that I really do love, and I like almost hate how much I love it, because again, these do have a shorter shelf life, and so I don't love recommending thermals for that reason. But if you really like thermals and you are going to be wearing them, like I feel like thermals are a pretty good finish for people who don't have that many polishes in their collection. Because if you're like me, where you have over 1,000 bottles of nail polish and you're not wearing them as often as you should be, chances are your thermal is gonna die before you get to fully enjoy it. But if you only have like 10 polishes, I think getting thermals is kind of safer at that point. So if that's you and you're in the market for one, I really love Sagebrush. This one was also from their Fallen collection, and it is like this beautiful grayed out green, at least in the cold state as seen here, but then when it transitions to the warmer state, it's like this lighter sage. It is so freaking pretty. Like it makes me so mad, because it's like I don't want to recommend a thermal, but this one is so pretty, and so I would only recommend it during a sale. So that pretty much wraps up my favorites of everything, but I did want to talk about some other issues that Mooncat has had. The first one I want to talk about, which I think is like their more recent one, is the issues with their bottles. I want to say this started around the Lunar Sale earlier this year. If you don't know, they do their Lunar Sale twice a year. I don't remember what month it was, but it was just earlier in this year. And I think it was after a lot of people were getting their orders from that sale that they were talking about their polishes arriving broken. But as time went on, I feel like a lot of people were posting on Reddit about their bottles just kind of exploding, which I know sounds dramatic, and I'm sorry that I don't have like all the information on me right now, but Linry has a really in-depth video on like the timeline of all these Reddit posts and talking about the photos, even the correspondence between, you know, these people that it happened to and Mooncat and all of that. But basically their bottles were breaking and it was pretty concerning. It really seemed like they had this batch issue with their bottles and it was just affecting a lot of people, or at least, you know, it seemed that way because of how many people were posting on Reddit. But there were occasional posts that were like, I've never had this issue and I never had a bottle break, nor do I know anybody in like my sphere whose Mooncat's bottles have broken or exploded or anything. So, you know, even though it hasn't happened to me or anyone that I know, I do want to talk about it because it was happening to a lot of people and it was like this really big concern, especially because of how Mooncat kind of handled it, where it took them a while to get to the point that they finally are now, where they basically switched manufacturers. They aren't going to have this issue anymore moving forward. It was with their Fallen collection that introduced the new bottles with the new manufacturer. And so every new collection moving forward will have these new bottles that won't have this issue anymore. And they are working on like restocking, I guess, like the older polishes, but I don't know if that's supposed to be after they sell out of their inventory or if, you know, there's a chance that you might buy something that's like older in this potentially faulty bottle. I have no idea exactly. So, you know, I just wanted to highlight that that was an issue. But if you are really worried about this still being an issue, I would limit your purchases to any of the newer collections, specifically the Fallen and Pandora Unboxed collection. But even if you do get a polish that arrives broken, Mooncat has really great customer service where they're gonna replace it or fully refund you. And the other issue that I want to talk about with Mooncat is when it comes to their website photos. It's so unfortunate because I feel like this was a problem for them like a couple of years ago, kind of when they first like, you know, started with their rebrand. I remember the shade Mercury's Tears being like the big #1 culprit of just misleading people from their swatch photos where people were getting the polish in and it just looks nothing like the website photos. And again, I totally get how frustrating that is. There was also like just a bad batch issue with Mercury's Tears where it just like was nowhere near what the polish is supposed to look like, because again, I have Mercury's Tears and I feel like it looks as shifty as the website photos do, but seeing some other people's swatches, I'm like, whoa, that is a totally different polish than the one that I have. So there has been like a batch issue, but there definitely was also this problem of like over editing or just photoshopping swatch photos, which, you know, I have talked about on my channel before. I am not a fan of it. I can understand to a degree making some color correction, especially when it comes to like neons or something, but there's a point where the editing just goes too far and it's like, this is what we want the polish to look like, but that's not what you're gonna get when you buy it. I feel like after the Mercury's Tears fiasco, you know, there's a lot of feedback and Mooncat actually listened and they did a lot better with showing like more accurate swatches, especially showing swatches in natural lighting and not just in studio lighting where they have like so many different light sources. Obviously that's gonna make the polishes look the best. So introducing natural light swatch photos was really, really helpful. And I feel like, you know, they just unfortunately suffered from that bad reputation for a while. I feel like it's unfortunately coming back because of Treachery in the Blue, where people are just like, my bottle does not look like that. But the problem is the warmer transition color, where the blue is blue, right? But the lighter color for the hot state looks like this almost blush pink kind of shade. And I've seen a lot of swatches where it just doesn't look as pink on that person. And I know there is like a fine line between like, well, we have different undertones and everything. We also don't know what base coats people are using. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Michelle is always using the pink nail primer, which is pink. It has a little bit of a tint to it, so that can affect the color on top, especially if it is like a lighter neutral kind of shade. So I'm not sure if that's what it is, if that's what's making her swatch look extra pink, or if it kind of ties into how I was talking about me recently swatching the shade and like noticing the color has like changed a little bit. It's possible maybe that if they had these polishes just, you know, in their warehouse, the thermals are like starting to fade or something, and then that's why they all are looking that way. I am not sure, but I just wanted to talk about it just to, you know, make you guys as informed as possible. Not to say this is even like a one-stop shop for everything. I would highly recommend checking out Reddit or like Facebook groups, just any other places to hear like genuine reviews. So yeah, I tried to be as informative as possible, but please do your due diligence because, you know, I feel like Mooncat, unfortunately, is kind of one of those brands that people either love or hate, and I really do love them. And it's because I haven't had bad experiences with them. And you know that when I have a bad experience with a brand, I will talk about it. So it does suck that there does seem to be some kind of consistency issue where not everybody is having great experiences with them. But again, if you are unhappy with your order, reach out to their customer service. But anyway, that wraps up my best of Mooncat. So as always, I can't wait to hear what you think of my favorites from this brand and if we have any in common. Are you planning on picking up any of the shades that I shared, or just let me know what's on your wish list in general. As a reminder, this is year 2 of doing my best of series, so I will have last year's video linked in the description box. Unfortunately, since Mooncat was my first video last year, I didn't have swatch footage in that video, but as a reminder, I have a whole Mooncat playlist, so you can see my swatch and reviews of every other polish, and that will also be linked down below. But yeah, I really hope that you found this helpful. Please leave me a like if you did, or just leave me any and all thoughts that you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!